This is Cars and Bids, and today we are going to talk about cars that are going up in value, but I actually want to talk about some of the less obvious cars that are going up in value. Everybody knows that kind of off-road or SUVs are hot right now, air-cooled Porsches, that sort of thing, manual supercars, the obvious stuff, but I want to discuss some interesting trends I've noticed on Cars and Bids lately of some cars that are going up in value that not only did I not expect, but I think a lot of people aren't really paying attention to. So let's do it. Okay, I have highlighted 6 cars or types of cars individually that I think are going up in value that are kind of a surprise or kind of under the radar going up in value, and I'm gonna talk about all of them, starting with the Tesla Roadster. Tesla Roadster came out in 2008, I guess was the first model year, and of course this was the first Tesla. And I just reviewed one on my main YouTube channel, which we then sold on Cars and Bids, and it sold for $97,500, which is a very good price for a vehicle like this, especially because a lot of Tesla Roadster model sales recently, in the last few years, have been in the $50,000 to $65,000 range. And so this one selling for $97,500 was a bit of a surprise, but not that much of a surprise. I think the Tesla Roadster values are going way up, and I say that because when the Roadster came out, it was sort of looked at as a stupid Tesla, Lotus Elise-based car they just altered, whatever, it's not anything special. Well, now that Tesla has established itself as a real brand, and not just a real brand, but like a very special, desirable brand with a ton of momentum, these early Tesla Roadsters, they only made like 2,000 of them, or 2,200 or something. That's rare. That's a special and rare car. And it was like the beginning of Tesla. It was like the very start of this incredible brand. And I think that collectors are going to start gravitating towards these cars. You want something that's like this really special Tesla that no one else has. Before all the others, this is the thing. And when I drove the Tesla Roadster in this video, I said, I'm surprised values of these haven't gone up lately. They really should be when you consider the rarity and what happened to the Tesla brand. Well, I guess I was actually a little late to that party. I think the values have and are going up, and these things are becoming more and more valuable and more desirable. And frankly, I actually think if Tesla continues its trajectory as like the EV company, the one that everybody wants to be a part of, I actually think that $97,500 in 10 years is going to seem like a bargain. We're going to say, boy, I remember when you could get a Tesla Roadster for only $97,500. Just because this is like the beginning and it's ultra rare. It's a very special car when you really think about it, given what's happened since then with some perspective. Okay, next up, cars gaining in value. People aren't really realizing. How about the F10 BMW M5? This is the M5 that was sold like in the beginning of the 2010s. I think it was sold like 2010, 11, 12, up to like 2016. I love this M5. In fact, I think that when all is said and done, years from now, we're looking back on M5s, this will go down as the second best M5 of all time after the famed E39 M5. That was, of course, probably the best BMW 5 Series ever. That's a tremendously special car. But the F10, I truly, truly believe will go down as the second best M5 of all time. It's beautiful. It's a really, really nice looking car. A lot of BMW designs in modern years have been kind of hit or miss. This was a big hit. It really looks nice, and it was a big improvement over the prior body style, which a lot of people didn't love, although I do like the 60. The other thing is it's a very powerful car. It has a big turbo V8, makes it's a lot of fun to drive, but it's not such a large car that you can't really throw it around and have fun in it. I think it's going to go down as kind of the last M5 before it just got pretty big and more luxury car focused. This was pretty luxury car focused, but it was still tossable enough. And I've been blown away recently at values of these cars. When we started Cars and Bids, it wasn't unusual to be selling F10 M5s in the $30,000 to $35,000 range, and sellers were happy with that number. But boy, has that changed. Over the last few months, obviously used car prices in general are really strong right now, but F10 M5 prices seem to be completely outpacing the market, not just manual transmission ones. Manuals are rare. They made 577 manuals for North America, but the autos even are doing very well. These are now going into the mid-30s, the low 40s. We just sold one for $51,000 with the competition package and a very rare color, car that had been in California from new. A very special car, later model year, but still a lot more than that same car would have sold for only a year ago. And I think people are starting to realize the F10 M5's desirability. They already saw the E39 M5 values take off, so people are thinking, okay, that's going to happen to this car too, and I think they're right. And speaking of M5s, I think the same thing is happening to the E60 M5. The E60 was the one that came between the E39 and the F10. It had the V10 engine and the styling that's kind of controversial. And for a long time, the E60 M5 has languished as a car that not that many people really wanted. That is changing, especially if you have a manual transmission. We recently sold a manual transmission E60 M5 for $37,750. We sold a lower mile one a couple months ago for $43,000. That's big money for one of these. We're even seeing automatic sales start to come up into the 20s for nice automatic E60 M5s. These cars are becoming a little bit more desirable. They are known to have flaws. They have reliability and powertrain issues, but they can be addressed, they can be fixed, and a bulletproofed, like a reliabilized E60 M5 is an amazing car when you think about it. Naturally aspirated V10 in a mid-size sedan, it's something you're not going to see again. So getting one of these and making it good, making it reliable, that's a car that's going to become more and more valuable over the years. And I think we're already seeing that rise beginning. Mark my words. Okay, next up, another vehicle type that's kind of slipping under the radar going up in value is old pickup trucks. Now, to be clear, old 1960s and 70s and 50s trucks have already been going up. That's not unusual, not surprising. The surprising thing to me is we're seeing the values of 80s and 90s pickup trucks increasing. So like this square body F250 sold for $22,000 with a 7.3 liter Power Stroke V8, 120,000 miles. Like this is a pretty nice truck, but it's been used a little bit, you know, and it's an old truck, you know, it was just something you'd use on a field back in the day. Well, these are starting to become more desirable. We sold this 94 F-150 for $13,500 with just a big 5.8 liter V8 and not a Super Duty. We're getting more and more money for old trucks and old pickup trucks, and I think there is an increased desirability around these vehicles. They are starting to feel cool. They're starting to get into that like cool and special era, even though they're not like maybe as vintage as 60s or 70s trucks. I think people are starting to realize this desirability is coming to the 80s trucks, so you better get them. And people are starting to do just that. And I'm surprised to see some of these trucks really bring in big money. Okay, another big one. We have been selling a ton on Cars and Bids, the 100 series Toyota Land Cruiser. I really, really strenuously believe not only are these going up in value, but I think they're going to continue to climb. So this was the Land Cruiser that was sold from 1998 to 2007. And they also made a Lexus version called the LX470. And these are probably the most common Land Cruisers that you can buy right now. They were made at a period when the Land Cruiser had not gotten too expensive like it is now, so a lot of people are still buying them, but it wasn't like an old school truck like the 80 series and the 60 series, so it was a more popular vehicle. And at this time, Land Cruisers were fairly common, to the point where values actually dropped real low. I mean, there was a period where you could buy a higher mile 100 series for like $6,000 to $9,000. I think you can still do that for like a rustier one or a really high mile one, but nicer 100 series Land Cruisers are becoming really, really desirable trucks. We sold a pinnacle model with 18,000 miles for over $60,000 a few months ago. That was like a public sale record for a 100 series since they were new. But it's not just that. There have been other sales that have been very surprising. If you just scroll through our 100 series database, we sell almost all of them, the Lexus or the Toyota. There's a lot of interest in these vehicles, and I think the main reason is they are becoming hard to find in nice shape. We have already seen this happen with the 80 series Land Cruiser, the cruiser that became before this, that was sold from 91 to 97. And that car for a long time was also a $5,000 to $8,000 used car. Well, now they're 25 grand in nice shape, in decent shape. I mean, they're incredibly hard to find, and that's gonna happen more and more with the 100 series. The 100s were even more reliable and even more plentiful, so people are going to buy them and use them up, and we're seeing them submitted with 250,000 miles. Cars with 100,000 miles are going to start to become the really desirable 100 series models, and that's especially true of the later ones, 2003 to 2007, but especially the 06 and 07 models are the ones everybody wants. And I'm blown away. The 100 series, which for so long was just like kind of a used car you could buy cheap, I think they're going to start gaining in value, especially nice ones, because they're just getting harder and harder to find. People are miling them up. That's what you do with a Land Cruiser. But what ends up happening when that happens is the low mileage ones bring big money, and we're going to keep seeing that. And finally, the last group of cars that I want to talk about going up in value recently, Porsches. Now, we all know that air-cooled vintage Porsches are going up in value. Everybody knows that, but I am seeing even non-air-cooled Porsches going up in value. We recently had a great sale of a 987 Boxster RS60, which is this beautiful car, sold for $32,000. They sold these in GT silver with a red roof and a red interior. You can also get them in black interior, black roof, but the red was the way to go. And this is a special car, but this particular one at 74,000 miles, didn't expect it to sell for $32,000, which it did. But I think that is speaking to a general run-up in the Porsche market in general. Frankly, I think a lot of people have been priced out of air-cooled vehicles. Air-cooled 911s now sell for $70,000, $80,000, and I think a lot of people are having trouble seeing the value, especially in some of these 60s, 70s cars. They made a lot of them. They're not all that fast. Why am I spending 80, 90 grand for this thing when I could get maybe a more modern one that's still a Porsche, still looks cool, a lot safer, a lot faster for a way less money? And I think those people are starting to gravitate more towards these newer cars, and they're selling for big money. We sold this 2015 Cayman S for $64,500. The sticker price on this car was in the 70s. We only sold it for a little below sticker, but there's a 6-speed manual in a great color with great options, a one-owner car, and had only 5,500 miles on it. And these cars are getting harder to find, and new Porsches are becoming more and more expensive. It was not long ago that a new GT3 cost $130,000, $140,000. Now it's like $190,000 with any options, like 8 years difference. Porsche knows that their brand is very strong right now and they're charging for it, and the result is that their used cars are becoming more desirable. The vintage ones have already taken off, and I think we're now seeing the 80s, 90s, 2000s Porsches becoming more desirable, especially in desirable specs like this Cayman. 6-speed, sport chrono, one owner, that's the one you want. Another good example of that, this 2009 Porsche Cayman 6-speed manual sold for $32,750. Didn't think it would get that high, especially with over 80,000 miles, but it did. It's a desirable car. Used car market is hot right now. Vintage Porsches are too expensive. New Porsches are too expensive. So this one sold for big money. That's more and more what's been happening. Porsches are generally taking off. And I think you don't need to buy an air-cooled Porsche anymore to see this sort of value rise as people kind of coalesce around the Porsche brand. It's been a great 8, 9 years for Porsche. A lot of people have become very interested in these cars. And I think that's not just affecting the vintage Porsches, the special Porsches like the Carrera GT or the 959, not just the air-cooled stuff. I think it's affecting the more regular ones as well, as finding nice cars with nice options, desirable colors, manual transmissions, not the easiest thing in the world, and people are paying up for them. And I think that trend is going to continue. So there you go. Those are some cars that are going up in value that I think not everybody has really realized are going up in value, but they are. So if you want to get it on the ground floor, you can take a look at some of these cars on Cars and Bids and maybe place some bids, and maybe they'll continue to go up in value, but who knows? Just kind of my predictions and my thoughts from what I'm seeing in the market.